I love seeing some of those names on there, and welcome everybody. It is the Gashouse Gang. We're on YouTube right now, along with Facebook. I do believe that X is still down. It's been acting funky today, which is not cool because we had a huge announcement to make from KMOX, and it has been made that we are now on 104.1 FM starting March 24th. I'll get into that in a little bit. What's going on, boys? I'm here in Jupiter, Florida. I'm wearing a headset like I'm calling a game, which I will be doing tonight. How's it going?
It's going good, man. 2 weeks until this is all wrapped up and 2.5 weeks till we got a real game. So, yeah. The only thing that'll be better is being even closer than that.
Yes. Matt, you left the place looking sparkling clean. It looks amazing. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Good to be here. How you doing?
I'm good. I did do some cleaning up because you're staying where I was staying. So yeah, did a little cleaning on my way out.
You're nice. I never cleaned for Tom coming in. I always left it.
Did not. I had to. No, it's great. I appreciate it. This studio here, right across from Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium, is very nice. I'm looking, however, Bernie, at a very cloudy day here. The storms are about to rip through here. But we're going to play ball tonight. The Cardinals are playing the Mets in Port St. Lucie. Everything should be out of here by then. 5 o'clock pregame, 5:10 first pitch. Sonny Gray is going to pitch against the Mets. And calling the game with me tonight is Stephen Carey. Chip's son is going to call the game with me tonight. In fact, we're going to have 3 games together this week. And then he and his dad are going to do a prospect game on Friday. So another Carey enters the Cardinal broadcast story.
Pretty cool.
How about that?
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the 2 Carey twins, but I respect that, the hard work they've put in, like working their way up through the minors. I know some people, you know how it is. Joe Buck had to hear it. Anybody's going to hear it. Hey, your name may get you an opportunity, but if you're awful at what you do, it's not going to matter what your last name is. So, yeah, I mean, I respect the Carey family and how everyone has taken the opportunity and built careers out of it, just much the way Joe Buck did. So, good. I'm going to try to listen, Tom. I'm going to try to listen.
Yeah, it'll be fun. He's been doing games in Amarillo. We all went to dinner last night. He's excited. He's like Chip Jr. He's tall, looks just like Chip. It's pretty cool. Jose Oquendo was just giving him some trouble in the clubhouse. He said, "You're doing the game tonight?" He said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Don't mess it up. No pressure." So, they were all there.
Yeah, look, we got this question. It's not the grandson. That's the great-grandson.
Yeah. Great-grandson of Harry Carey. Stephen Carey calling some Cardinal baseball tonight from Port St. Lucie. And, guys, no lineup has been posted yet here. Ollie Marmol is going to address the media here in a little bit. So maybe just kind of figuring out a few things, maybe the health of a couple of guys and whatnot, or the availability of some guys. I do believe Nolan Gorman's going to be in that lineup today. He had an absolute bomb yesterday. In fact, Kevin, we had a pretty interesting day of home runs. You had Nolan Gorman hit a bomb. Alec Burleson hit a bomb. Everybody gets a bomb. Matt Koperniak, Cesar Prieto, 3 Yankees hit bombs. That never happens around here at this ballpark.
Was the wind blowing out? I know they changed the dimensions. It seems to have made a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
I know the gaps are a lot closer because they're going to they're putting the bullpens out there more like a major league ballpark for the future. But I think that's fascinating.
No, the bullpens are there now.
Oh, they're there now. Okay. So there you go. That's why they got moved in. And it's funny because like Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium forever was like the worst hitters park in the world. Like you would see guys hit just missiles into the gap and it just die. The low elevation, the humidity, the big dimensions. It's kind of fun that it's a little more normal.
Yeah, well, the home runs that Burley and Gorman hit would have been out of any park.
Yeah, I don't think it would have mattered at all.
Those were absolute missiles, especially Bernie. I feel good for Gorman. Now, I know we talk all the time about process. It's about process, not results. But this result in particular, and I just chatted with him just sort of, playing around the clubhouse about it. I told him one of our listeners said that he sent that ball on vacation. He liked that one. We may have to use that one.
Yeah, I'm always patient in spring training with veterans, even young veterans who are not off to a great start. I mean, the real baseball starts March 27th, and that's kind of my operational policy. But when a guy like Gorman has so much to prove and all eyes are on him, same with Jordan Walker. I mean, you just want to see him do well because it's good for their confidence and it sort of generates some positivity. So that was good to see. And, left-handed hitters on this team are going to be really important this year, because I was doing some numbers over the weekend, and I'll get into it another time. But you know how you're supposed to have a platoon split advantage? Like, your left-handed batters are supposed to be really good against right-handed pitching.
Yeah.
Last season, the Cardinals' right-handed hitters and their left-handed hitters were equal in terms of their performance against right-handed pitching. So if the Cardinals want to get their offense going, guys like Gorman and Burleson are a huge part of it, because they're going to need a lot more from their left-handed bats. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So, see, Tom, you like how I tied that into, you talking about Burleson and Gorman, how I kind of tied that into a season outlook?
Absolutely. And by the way, Matt Pauley, you were talking about it. I know that I spent some time with him in the off season. Watch out for Matt Koperniak. This guy can absolutely rake, and he hits the ball extremely hard. Now, there are a lot of position battles going on here. One of them will be utility. I kind of wonder at some point, though, if he works his way into the outfield conversation, if he's a bench bat. What is Matt Koperniak to you?
Well, I think the most important thing is he's a lefty, and that's not good, because the Cardinals have a bunch of that. And that's the thing that I think if he was a right-handed bat and he was doing what he's doing right now in spring, I think the narrative is incredibly different, because we're talking about this guy being a legit guy on this roster. He's going to have to, as a left-handed bat, when you look at roster construction, he's going to have to do so much to force the issue of the Cardinals for him to be on the roster. He's had an impressive spring, obviously shows the power, guy who makes good contact consistently, has just gotten better and better, got the Cardinals to get to a point to add him onto the 40-man roster this past offseason. But I still just kind of pump the brakes a little bit on him when it comes to this roster, simply because he is a left-hander.
Yeah, it feels like they'd have to move somebody, right? I mean, you'd have to move an Alec Burleson to make room for him, or somebody. I mean, if you were to make a trade involving someone else, I mean, it's hard to fit that guy, even though he's a really good player, man. I mean, what the numbers he's put up the last couple of years in the minor leagues are strong. They're strong in terms of on base. He puts the ball in play. He hits it with authority. I think he's a really nice depth piece. So if you had an injury, like say Nootbaar goes down, he's a guy that you might want to give a shot. Call him up. I don't know that and I've seen the reports that he doesn't really project as an elite defender, but he's probably a better outfielder than Burley. And that would give you an option to plug into a corner outfield spot. So, I mean, he's kind of the guy on call, but I've been impressed with him, man. I think he's looked really good. And that bench construction thing is really interesting because, Tom, I know you get a chance to talk to Mo every week. I don't get to talk to him very often, but we did yesterday when I was filling in for you on Sports on a Sunday. And I asked him about those guys, Barrero and Hellman and Baker. And he specifically had a lot to say positively about Baker and Barrero. Mm-hmm. And, Barrero is an interesting guy because he's super athletic. He plays shortstop and he plays center field. And that means you can basically play anywhere else. You can play corner outfield if you can play center. You can play second and third if you can play short. That versatility might end up being, and the fact that he is actually a shortstop could end up being something that helps him. And he's been slugging down there too. Like he's got some pop.
Yeah, he does. Bernie, the other thing to watch here is, of course, the emergence of Victor Scott. And I know that Kevin asked Mo Zaylock about that on the show yesterday, and he went pretty well in depth, didn't he? And
Bernie, he did.
About what Scott has been doing down here. I know you've been talking about Vic for a while, Bernie. This is going to get really interesting here if he continues to impress.
It seems to me he's clearly in the lead for the center field job once they sort of backed off this idea of using Nootbaar there extensively. And Siani's done nothing in camp offensively, and Siani has never put any kind of offensive numbers up going all the way through his minor league career. So they need to spruce up their offense. They need to jack it up. And Victor Scott, with all the work he's done with the hitting coach Brant Brown, and before that Ryan Ludwig, and all the effort he's put into it to be as good as he can be, and it's paid off with really terrific spring training performance. And I'm going to repeat something that I've said before when we talk about these guys. It's like, I don't really care if, like, in the last 10 days or so he hits 220. I just don't care. I mean, he is who he is. We're seeing who he is now, and what a guy does in like tail end of Grapefruit League exhibition games just simply nothing I pay attention to. And I don't know why people would, unless the Cardinals are trying to use some kind of slump by him as a reason to justify some other roster decision. But if they do, they'll be violating their entire premise of the season, that it's a quote runway season. If you send Victor Scott to Memphis, it ain't a runway season, because a runway's not in Memphis. It's supposed to be in St. Louis.
It's interesting, Bernie, because you and I talked a lot last week about the young guys and swing decisions and, their control of the strike zone and laying off stuff you can't do anything with and swinging at strikes. And that was where Mo went when he was talking about Victor Scott. And, they look at that in the games, but they're looking at that in live BPs, and they're looking at that in other settings, and they're measuring it in those other settings. So it's a really fascinating thing. And, we're all just kind of like trying to read between the lines, right? Anytime somebody like Ollie or Mo will say something about a player, whether it's a lack of information or it's some praise that's like, that's pretty good, but it's pretty good to hear. I know I try to connect all the dots and say, I think they like Victor Scott right now. I think they like Jose Barrero. And what they like now can change in 2 weeks. So we got to keep that in mind.
Made me feel good to hear what Mo said, because Bernie, you asked me on Friday to give you the one or two players, and the two players from a position player standpoint I mentioned were Luke and Baker and Jose Barrero, and then Mo says the exact same thing on Sunday morning. So that I think we're all seeing the same stuff. Now the next question is, does it play out in a way where playing time and roster decisions kind of vibe with what we're seeing?
Yeah, with from KMOX with Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman. We're sponsored by Game Day Men's Health, and also, Bernie, we're sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling.
Always love talking about them here on the Gashouse Gang, because they sponsor the show. They have some responsibility for the show getting off the ground, so they're a wonderful partner. And as a family that has been calling Saliga Heating and Cooling for 16 years, I understand why Dan Saliga, who's the fourth generation owner operator, the family business, I understand why Saliga Heating and Cooling has been around since 1927 and still going strong. They've built up that credibility and trust and great reputation, because you wouldn't be in 2025 still adding clients every single day, because they're so great at what they do. So go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. This American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer's got a long list of services, and take a look at the Priority Club. I would encourage you to do that. And don't forget the American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning equipment's a bonus. But for all the information, and I'll talk about them again later on, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com.
All right, thanks very much. Here's a lineup that has been posted on the MLB app by the Cardinals, and it looks like this. Mason Wynn will lead off tonight and play shortstop against the Mets. Brendan Donovan will play. Okay, listen, I'll comment on that. Actually,
I'm sorry, Tommy. I'm sorry, brother.
Wynn is going to lead off every single game down here.
So, somebody's got to be the grumpy, cynical, jaded son of a gun on this show. So anyway,
Wynn's going to lead off every single game down here, and that's because they want to get him as many at-bats as possible.
I know.
Brendan Donovan is playing left field and batting second. Alec Burleson is batting third and playing first base. I still think Wynn will be a good leadoff man. Baker is the cleanup. He is the DH. Nolan Gorman is going to play third base and bat fifth tonight. Pedro Pajes catching, batting sixth. Thomas Sajaci at second base, batting seventh. Victor Scott in right field, batting eighth. And Michael Ciani is the center fielder tonight, batting ninth. Your lineup again is Wynn, Donovan, Burleson, Baker, Gorman, Pajes, Sajaci, Scott, Ciani. Your thoughts, Matt Pauley.
Is that the first time Scott's started in right field in spring?
I think so. He's played some left field, yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing that jumps out. That's the only thing that jumps out at me. It's a spring training lineup.
Yep, no doubt.
I would ask this question, though. How about this? I would ask this question about it, and I know it's spring, so it's not a big deal. But does Michael Ciani not play left or right field? Is there not a possibility that he ends up the fourth outfielder as a guy that might do that, or is that just out of the question? He's just center field, and that's all he's going to do.
It seems like it, unless they really had designs on, say, Koperniak being an extra guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, right now, if we put Koperniak into this group, okay, just candidates, they've got 6 left-handed hitting outfielders, and we mentioned this, briefly. Wheels did, and I think Aki did at the top. You got Nootbaar, Donovan, Burleson, Ciani, Scott, and then Koperniak. So how many, well, first of all, how many outfielders can you keep? And, how many left-handed hitting outfielders can you keep? So I don't know how to do the cut down, but you asked a good question about, is there any chance of Ciani being the guy sent back to Memphis? There's got to be a chance. But I don't have a confident prediction to make on that.
Yeah.
Jordan Walker, by the way, I did not get a chance to talk to him as I was kind of running over here to get the show on the air, but the clubhouse access is still going on. He did, have a bat in his hand. He's getting ready, look like, to take some more swings and get himself ready. But they said a while ago it was going to be more day to day. That was on Tuesday, so we're coming up on a week now.
I think Mo said yesterday, maybe midweek this week, like he's doing baseball activities, but they're pushing it back for games just for a little bit more.
Yeah, so things seem fine there. The Cardinals and Mets tonight. Sonny Gray making the start. Sonny Gray's protege, let's say, the guy he took under his wing last year, Matthew Liberatore. I think, Kevin, we all assume that Liberatore is going to be a bullpen piece and a very good one. They have stretched him out a little bit. He said in the offseason when I talked to him, he said, in my heart, it will always be as a starter. And that's really what he wanted to be. But he would be in any role they want. He just wants to win. But, John Mozeliak last week mentioned him when we were talking about starting candidates.
Yeah.
He went a little further with you yesterday, didn't he?
He did, and I was not expecting it. I mean, again, we know that he stretched out, and we know that they like his upside, but I didn't bring Liberatore's name up. I just asked if, they see, like, the rotation spring training efforts were like as they expected, right? Nobody's really hurt. None of the candidates that you were counting on for the rotation are hurt. Everybody's just kind of getting their work in. And he said, yeah, that's pretty much true. And, when I asked him if there were guys standing out, he named McGreevy and he named Liberatore. And he went on about Liberatore, talking about how he changed his offseason strength and conditioning, that he's done things in that regard that he hadn't done previously in his career. And it's a noticeable difference. And he said, flat out said, Mo said he thinks his long-term future is as a starter. Like, they think he's a starting pitcher. And obviously that could be this year. I mean, it's not perfect because we don't see a spot open right now, but reading between the lines, how crazy would it be to say, you know what? We really like Liberatore. He's going to open the year in the rotation and Matz is going to open the year in the bullpen. I mean, you could go that route. You could make a trade based on some of this. I mean, the Yankees are down 2 guys in the rotation, one probably for the year in Garrett Cole, and the other one, Luis Gil, is down for at least 3 months, probably closer to 4. So would you maybe think about trading a Matz or a Fetty if you like what you're seeing from both McGreevy and Liberatore, and then you throw in Roby and Graceffo and the impacts or the impressions they've made? I don't know, but I wouldn't say stunned, guys, but I took note of how far Mo went in praising Liberatore yesterday, especially when it came to the offseason and conditioning work and getting himself ready for this opportunity. Yeah,
he's in really good shape. Bernie, and remind people who drafted Matthew Liberatore.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and I'm not saying this just to say it, because first of all, the idea that John Mozeliak and Chaim Bloom don't talk about everything, they have a really excellent relationship. And it's not like they're sealed off in separate rooms and there should be no contact between them. I mean, let's be adults here. Chaim Bloom loves Matthew Liberatore. They were excited to draft him. He drafted him
in Tampa, yeah.
And it hurt him to trade him for Randy Rosarina, even though it paid off at the time for the Rays. But it hurted him to make that trade because Liberatore was this guy. So that's number one. I got to think that Chaim Bloom's got some influence in this and maybe opening some eyes. And number two, I want to push back in advance. This is a preemptive pushback. For people, right? For people, they're going to say, well, gosh, I mean, he's been terrible as a starting pitcher. I mean, why would they do that? And he's been pretty good in the bullpen. Why would they do that? Well, first of all, he's still 20. He's only 25 years old. He's made 24 starts in the big league, big leagues, and as a starting pitcher, he's got 101 innings. Oh, so we've made a judgment. He shall never start again. Based on that? Is that right? Okay, no, That's not how it works. His major league service time is 1 year and 1 month because, he's gone down to Memphis. So you add it all together. It's 1 year and 1 month. He's still just scratching the surface. So I'm not saying put him in the rotation. I'm just saying don't start whining about it. Just let's not whine about the idea of him becoming a starting pitcher because the track record is just so incomplete. It's so thin. He's never had a full opportunity to start. Never. So I'm pro Liberatore. I know he'll be good in the bullpen.
Yes.
But, if this is a runway season again,
boom.
Wouldn't Liberatore fit that profile as a, quote, runway player? I don't know.
100%. 100%.
I'm a little torn on this one though, and this is why, because I like the idea of Liberatore long-term starting pitcher. The value that you get from a starting pitcher is always more value than what you get from a relief pitcher. But he has been messed with so much in his Cardinals tenure. Starter, reliever, he's starting, but we're going to make him available out of the bullpen on his throw day.
They got to stop that nonsense.
They've done so many things with him for his own well-being. Part of me just wants them to put him in the bullpen for the year and let him just have a normal season as a relief pitcher where he can go be a really successful dude. And if they want to come back around next year and look at him as a starting pitcher and everything, that's fine. But for his own well-being, I just want to see him have a role, have it incredibly defined, and just be that guy. And I don't see that happening as a starting pitcher. I don't see the path for him being a every fifth day starting pitcher from opening day until the final day of the season. If they make trades and they create that space and they create that runway for him, okay, that's a different conversation to be had. But I would strongly prefer him to be a reliever from Jump Street until the end of the year, as opposed to being a guy that they wiggle back and forth between this rotation.
No, I agree with that. The only thing I would add is if there was an actual opportunity to put him in the rotation and keep him there, I would very much be in favor of that.
Yeah.
But I don't see that. Because I think the Cardinals have done such a horrible job of explaining what this season is all about. They've confused their own fan base. The way I look at it, I'm not in charge, but the way I look at it, every decision made in 2025 should have as a prominent factor. What does it mean for 2026 as well? So if I can get Liberatore if I can get him in a head start with a chance to be in the rotation, so be it. But I think they're too set in their ways, and I would not trust the situation, as Matt pointed out accurately, that they would keep him in the rotation, and then they can't keep doing the Zach Thompson thing with him.
No.
They just can't keep doing it.
100%. 100%. And that's the thing. They control this though, right? Like, it's not like something is going to happen. They have to show that they're going to change. But to me, I agree with you on that part, Bernie. If you're going to do this and you want him to start, you do it now. You do it, and you do it from opening day on, because it makes no sense to start off in the pen and okay, now you got to go back to Memphis and spend a month or two there building up. If you think he's a starter long term, then you make the room. You move Matz to the bullpen. You trade somebody. You do what you have to do if they think that. Now,
if they think
all we have are a minute and a half worth of comments from Mo on Sports on a Sunday this week, and then his comments with Tom in the past in that same setting, but. If that's what you think, do it now and deal with it. If he struggles a little bit, then he struggles. Don't do Matt, you're so right. They got to stop with the yo-yo. Pick a lane, stay in that lane. But if you think he's a starter, and you nailed it, Matt, starters are more valuable than setup guys. They just are. If you think he's a starter, do it now. This is the year, because then you'll know going into 26, because you can always go back to the pen later. The longer you go, the harder it is to go back to the rotation.
Gashouse Gang from KMOX with Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman. I'll tell you something else. They had a guy, Liberatore would be a candidate for this, someone to close games beyond Ryan Helsley, because he is going to get some days. They had a guy yesterday, packed house, Yankee fans in there all hollering. Cardinals are up 6-5. Romero pitches the 8th inning. And then this guy, 6'8", 240 plus pounds, comes in there and goes 1, 2, 3. Now it's against some reserves in the ninth inning, but he strikes them all out and fist pumps. And it was Chris Roycroft. Now, Roycroft, they were dying to get him in a situation like that. 1-run game, big crowd, a little bit of pressure, just kind of simulate what he would face maybe in the regular season. Of course, it's only 7,500 people, but it was impressive. I mean, I'm curious kind of what they're going to do, Bernie, on the back end of the pen here.
Right.
That's a big part of their success moving forward.
There's so much to like about Roycroft. The only red flag I have, and by the way, I'm sure that they have tried to work on stuff that would put the red flag down.
Right.
But left-handed hitters killed him last year. He couldn't get left-handed batters out. He was dominant against right-handed hitters. But I think he's an up-and-comer. I think he's a guy that if Dusty Blake and some of the more advanced information they have with coming from some of the technology that I know is going to be much bigger part of the work they do in terms of their pitching at the major league level. They didn't have the technology before, not all that they needed to have. I got to think they'll find a way to be able to reshape some of those pitches, or maybe do the Tampa Bay Rays thing, which is, why the Rays, and this applies because Chaim Bloom's here, and it applies because Roycroft is a guy that could represent this. Tampa Bay, people say, well, what's their secret? Like all these young pitchers, and because they identify what the pitchers do best. And they basically said, look, that's your best pitch, man. You're not throwing it enough. You see this pitch here? It's junk. Get it out of there. Go with your best stuff. And then we're also going to change some other things. But Roycroft seems to be one of those guys, and I feel a lot better about this now that Chaim Bloom is in the building, so to speak, because he's got that knowledge of what they did in Tampa Bay. They always seem to get amazing things out of guys. Like who? Like Ryan Anderson.
Yeah.
Dude had a 44% strikeout rate when he was with the Rays, in 19 and 20. It's like nobody ever heard of him before that. So anyway.
Yeah.
Rays also churn and burn. Like they go through these guys, they run them hard, and then all of a sudden they don't have an elbow anymore.
Dodgers do the same. And there's a lot of pitching injuries out there.
Roycroft is interesting in a couple ways. He does need a weapon against lefties, and I don't know if that's going to be improving the sinker, because his four-seam fastball is his best pitch. And here's why. He's 6'8", as you pointed out, Bernie. He throws 96, but he's got he gets more extension than almost any pitcher in baseball, which means he's releasing the ball closer to home plate than other pitchers, which makes that 96 seem like 99. Like that's where a guy like Randy Johnson, if he's throwing 95, it looked like 100, because you're releasing the pitch so close to home. So if you look at last year, he was in the top 6-7% in extension in Major League Baseball. So when a 6'8" guy is getting that reach, that 96 jumps. So if he gets anything for lefties, he's a really interesting guy. And I got to tell you guys too, I'm such a fan of Ryan Fernandez, what we saw last year, and he's just following that up in the spring. I think you have some really interesting candidates for leverage innings this year and next year.
I love this bullpen. I love it. And, Andrew Kittredge just got injured, and it is an injury that was probably going to happen no matter where he was. So any laments about him not being brought back and kind of be thrown out the door now. The guys that we're talking about, the Roycrofts, the Graceffos, the Robies, Munoz looked really good when I was down there. I don't know if he's going to get a chance to make the opening day roster, but hopefully he's around. I mean, there's so many pieces that have great stuff that you can just imagine pitching in leverage spots, close and late, 7, 8, 9. I love the potential of this group. And there might be some bumps in the road early on because you're going to have a bunch of guys without track record, but let's get them track record. That's what a runway is about. And you can have a really dangerous bullpen moving forward with a lot of these pieces.
Real quick, I want to throw a name in there that I think gets overlooked. And he was very underrated last year, and he was very versatile in what he could do in a bullpen. And I'm talking about Kyle Leahy.
Mm-hmm.
Very valuable guy. When Miles Michaelis would have one of his second or third or fourth inning blowups, and they needed someone to cover those middle innings. Kyle Leahy could give you two and 2/3 innings, 3 innings, whatever. I mean, a large percentage of his appearances were more than 1 inning. So he's a really valuable guy when you have an early disaster and you need those guys. Hold the line, hold the score there, give us a chance. But here's what gets overlooked. When you see those guys, you kind of see them as like, well, that's the last guy in the bullpen. That's what they do. I went and looked at a lot of his stuff recently. And Kyle Leahy, when he had a chance to pitch late, and literally those late and close or close and late situations, terrific. Go look it up, high leverage on Baseball Reference. When he was in high leverage spots, terrific. The point is, I don't think the Cardinals, I'll give him credit, I don't think the Cardinals are sort of typecasting him. Well, this is your role and that's it. I think, my intel is the Cardinals are pretty excited by Kyle Leahy. I don't know what it means about how they'll use him, but I don't want to forget about him. I think he's going to be a factor.
This is the Gashouse gang from KMOX. That's Bernie Miklasz, who is going to tell us about our sponsors, Saliga Heating and Cooling.
Yeah, they've been serving St. Louis families since 1927, including the Miklas's for the last 16 years, and they're an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. And I've talked about all they do as far as fixing stuff, replacing stuff, making recommendations that'll save you money on your heating and cooling systems. Their integrity is amazing. It's just 100%. And everything else they do is highest marks from the Miklas's. But go to the Priority Club. I want you to check that out. It's a maintenance program that actually pays off in a lot of ways. They come out twice a year, make sure everything's working okay. They'll make little tweaks to it, little adjustments. And that way, when they leave, that, we're all set for the winter. Oh, boy, that's a relief. Okay. We're all set for the scalding summer. That's a relief. So you got that peace of mind. That it's safe. And the other thing is you'll save money by having maintenance. You'll save money over the long term because it extends the lifespan of your equipment, that American Standard heating and air conditioning equipment. So go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com and you can find out more about the Priority Club.
Outstanding. With Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler, that's Bernie. I'm Tom Ackerman. We have Cardinals and Mets tonight from Port St. Lucie at 5:10, 5 o'clock pregame. Cardinals.com will have that. The Mets are just getting killed with injuries here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now Francisco Alvarez, they're probably they're one of the best prospects in baseball, really.
They put together a team just from the 2 New York teams' injuries.
No kidding. The Yankees.
Boy, you know what? You just hate to see it too, don't you? Go spend more, jerks.
About that. Alvarez out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken bone in his hand. Speaking of catchers, did you see Katie Woo's story on Yadier Molina?
Yeah, I did. Did you guys see that? That was really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe Yadi, maybe it's not a coincidence that Albert Pujols talked about wanting to be a manager, and Yadi talks about wanting to be a manager, but right now spending a little time with his family. I found it to be a good piece by Katie today, Bernie. Really good.
Yeah, but no, it's very good. And he explained why he hasn't been around. It makes sense. His 18-year-old son. I imagine this, my mind blown. His 18-year-old son is apparently a really good catching prospect. Who would have figured that out, right? I know. So then, they moved the family to Austin, but he still proclaimed his, love for the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. He wants to manage. He made that really clear. It may not be like he's on a different timetable, I think, than Albert Pujols, who's ready to go even this year if somebody calls him. I think Yadi wants to see this through with his son, and he very, very much wants to manage. In fact, he even said, I'll manage the Chicago Cubs if they ask me to. So things like that. I would recommend everybody read Bob Nightingale's story on Albert Pujols, because it wasn't just Pujols wanting to manage. That story's been told over and over again. It's the voices, the prominent voices in the story talking about Albert Pujols and why he'll be a great manager. Mike Trout, Mike Schilt, Tony La Russa, the Angels' current general manager, who said some remarkable things about him. Also, Dave Roberts. I mean, everyone's just saying it. And if you read this, read the part about the meeting that Pujols had with the hitters, 45 minutes. But it wasn't just the hitters, because the pitchers wanted in on that too. So they had this meeting room. The pitchers are coming in, visitors to camp are coming in. LaRussa was in the back of the room. And this 45-minute thing blew everyone away. And you know why I'm bringing it up? It blew everyone away because he hearkened back to everything he learned as a young player in the Cardinals organization. Lou Brock coming in, Bob Gibson coming in, Stan the Man, Red, Ozzie Smith, like all these people we can name. I mean, I've left some out. He just said how much he benefited, like the high standards they had and they set for young players. They challenged them. They gave great advice. They told them what it meant. They told us what it meant to be a Cardinal. They put that DNA in us. And I read that and I was just kind of like, wow, that's like really powerful stuff. And some people wonder why, I keep talking about Albert Pujols managing the Cardinals at some point. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. But
I'll let you finish. Sorry, but I was just
if Yachty wants to manage the Cardinals or any other team, so now you got these two guys out there campaigning. It's pretty interesting. Go ahead, Tommy. I'm sorry
to interrupt. I was going to say, before Cardinals fans get too upset, just understand, like, if Pujols wants to manage and Molina wants to manage, like, not everybody can manage the Cardinals. Like, somebody's going to have to. Someone's not going to be managing the Cardinals here. So.
Yeah, and fans, and I by the way, I'm not being a jerk about this. I understand the thought, but they're like, well, you can hire Pujols and Molina could be the coach. So you bring in Waino as the pitching coach, and then Molina's a manager. He can hire Albert as the first of all, I think both of these guys want to manage, and the other thing is they don't have to pay the dues of being a coach. Was Craig Counsell a coach in the minors or the majors? No.
Nah.
What was Lou Piniella? No, he went right to the Yankees managing job. Joe Torre was actually a player when the Mets made him a manager in the same season. No. That's just not how it works anymore. This idea that either one of these guys has to pay their dues. Are you stinking kidding me?
I'm putting you guys on the spot. The hardest question you're going to get. You have to pick between Albert and Yachty. You have to pick. Who you picking?
When? Like now?
Yeah, like today, like next year. They both want to manage. You got the choice between the two of them. Which one do you want?
Albert.
Probably Albert.
No doubt about it. I mean, he's locked in. He just came off a championship and he's ready to roll, where Yachty's already said that he wants to spend some time with family. And I think that Yachty will.
If they both say they want to manage next year, if they both are there saying the same thing, like we want to do this,
I'm taking Albert with my first pick, and Yachty would be the next pick off the board. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that, by the way, that Ollie Marmol is going to lose his job. He's still the manager. No. By the way, he's got a lot of support around here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm going Albert first.
It's a tough call, isn't it? I mean, because there's more. Because I think they'd be pretty equal as far as running the team. But there's another part to this that Albert would have an advantage in, and that's this stuff. You got to talk to us every day. You got to be in front of the camera. You got to do a radio show. You got to do all that. And I think that fits Albert more than it fits Yachty, because to me, that's the tiebreaker. I couldn't choose baseball wise, but that's probably your difference maker.
Yeah. But Yachty's pretty savvy, Matt. I mean, seeing that story where he said, he paused and then he said, I could even be manager of the Chicago Cubs. He knows.
I'm team Pujols all the way. Nothing against Yachty, but
right.
He just for a lot of the stuff that I already know about him, including Yadier Molina, incredibly smart baseball man, and just incredible. So it's nothing about him. But when Pujols was 11 years with the Cardinals, he already knew I'm going to prepare for the future. I'm not sure what the future is, but I'm going to start preparing for it. He was in LaRussa's office several times a week for 11 years. The guy that's won more games than anybody but Connie Mack, and Connie Mack was the owner of the team, so he couldn't be fired. He was in there constantly asking Tony La Russa, well, look, I'm watching a game, Tony, and I thought you would bring in this reliever. You brought in a guy I didn't expect. And like, well, what were you thinking there? Why did you do that? I want to learn. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. He would come in, and La Russa, it was like a masterclass, like for 11 years, and it just wasn't about like one specific thing. It was all encompassing. How do you make roster decisions? What do you do if a player's a little bit out of line? How do you handle that? How do you build a bullpen? how do you balance having to play young players when you have veterans? What about days off? I mean, anything there had to do, and dealing with the media, anything he had to do with managing, Pujols was taking a class every day, and he's just more well-rounded, with all due respect to Yadier Molina. And I just feel very passionately about that, and people can disagree. That's cool, that they can, but I have reasons for doing so, is my point.
Sure.
That's
no,
all.
absolutely. Before we go, just around the horn, if you would, the big news today, the KMOX announced we will be broadcasting now on 104.1 FM. We're staying on 1120 AM, which is heard in most states around the country. But, Matt, a big announcement today, historic actually, with near our 100th birthday, we have made the move to a big FM signal. We previously were on 98.7, which is a translator. It's a downtown antenna that Hot 104.1 will turn to Hot 98.7. And for KMOX, now 104.1, just stretching our FM signal throughout the region.
Yeah, really excited for this. Hopefully more people, when we're doing Cardinals post-game shows, more people are listening in as they head home from the ballpark. Great to get the full signal FM. Of course, the heritage of 11:20 a.m. and being able to hear it nationwide after the sun goes down. As somebody who's lived all over the country but been originally from St. Louis, I can't tell you. One of my favorite things was walking out of a Colorado Springs Sky Sox game and getting in my car and turning on KMOX in Colorado Springs so I could listen to games. So I'm glad we're staying on 11:20. I'm glad all the people who are used to listening to the station on that signal are there. But to get a full power St. Louis metro market FM signal that covers the entire market, and we're going to be sounding so good on that FM dial, man, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I think it's really, really smart too. I mean, I'm not trying to suck up to the company because I'm not a full-time employee, but it's really, no, it's really, really smart. It's really, really smart. And I think I'm glad to see, I'm glad to see that second bridge being open to give access to Cardinals fans who want to listen on the radio. It's really smart.
You're in the house there. So how has it been received inside the building today?
I mean, it's best of both worlds, right? I mean, you're going to hear everything any way you want to do it. And, this is a big deal for teams too. Like, this is a modern thing for professional sports teams wanting to have the best of both worlds. So you'll hear Cardinals baseball in full FM in the St. Louis metropolitan area too. So not only do you get to hear all of these wonderful voices and the voices of people like Dave Glover and Michael Calhoun and Debbie Monterey, you get to hear all these great voices, but you get to hear Ricky and John that way too. Yeah, it's people here are pumped up. It comes with challenges, but everybody's pumped up.
Sure. No, that's good. And, I will say it does give us some flexibility too. I mean, you can put two different things on at once if you had to. So it's exciting. And I'll just close with this. Thank you to our listeners for making this happen. Thank you to our sponsors, our partners as well. All that stuff, man. It has been a long time coming. So Steve Moore, Becky Damian, Beth Coughlin, these are people who really, really worked this hard for a long, long time. And it has finally come to fruition. So that's exciting. Guys, thank you. Appreciate it. Good edition of the Gashouse Gang. We'll catch you tomorrow right here on your favorite social media channel, replayed on KMOX.